All right, you're back listening to The Shelf, Whangarei District Libraries radio show and podcast on Beagle Radio, 88.1 FM, www.beagleradio.co.nz. Thanks for joining us. My name's Glenn, and with me is LJ. And coming up now, we've got an interview with a local illustrator called Aki Fukuoka. Aki, if you don't know her, you might know some of her work without even realising it. She's an illustrator of a really famous book series for children called Billie B Brown, and
written by Sally Rippon.
And Andy, our fellow shelfie, has done an interview with her, and we'll be playing that in just a second. You might also recognise some of Aki's work if you come to the Central Library. Up on the wall in the children's room, 3 sort of white boards, and they've got her illustrations all over them. That was done at the Whangarei AMP show 2023. She did a live drawing session, and children came up, wrote down what they wanted her to draw into a box. She drew out at random and then turned them into real life drawings, often with cartoon sort of pictures of the children themselves in the picture. Really amazing. And she just drew for 4 hours straight so you can see those. And she's also helped us out before and done presentations in a children's summer holiday program a year or so ago. So that's a little bit about Aki. So let's play the interview now. This is Andy interviewing illustrator Aki Fukuoka.
I am here with Aki Fukuoka, the illustrator of the Billie B Brown series. We first met at the Plunge Comic Festival here in Whangarei, where I was making badges with the old discarded comic books, and we started talking. And I met Aki there. And she told me that she was an illustrator of children's books, and here she is.
Hello, thank you, Andy, for inviting me for your podcast interview. I actually remember when we first met, you were cutting up, I think, One Piece book, turning them into badges, and I was like, what are you doing? And I told you, once you're done with them, once everybody has cut all the faces out of all the characters, please let me take that art book home. Because, and that was our first meeting.
It felt wrong the first time I had to do that, but we will order more because they're so popular. In fact, anything you see that's being discarded, it's just a testament to how popular it is.
That's true.
Someone there was almost teary-eyed when he saw we were cutting up his favorite Batman comic, Mad Love.
Well, my kids still read that holy One Piece art book, because you can still make out the characters even though they're missing faces. They're still they still enjoy reading through those pages. So there you go.
And we almost couldn't keep up with the demand. The kids were so excited.
Your station was very popular.
I think I had to tell them to form a
queue.
Yes. Let's talk about your illustrations. I brought one of your books here. I did read a couple of them, and this one I just took off the shelf because I noticed Billie always has a soccer ball. Is that just part of her character, or are you a soccer fan?
No, well, I don't write the story. Sally Rippon, she's the current Australian Children's Laureate. So she she's a best-selling female author in Australia now, but 15 years ago, when she initially started writing the series, she knew that she wanted to write a character based on quite a feisty little girl. And so not a traditional girl, but a girl who, her best friend is a boy named Jack, who's her neighbour, and she doesn't mind getting dirty. She's quite feisty. She's very brave and a very emotional girl, so she's got a lot of big imaginations. And then she has her sidekick, Jack, who kind of tames her down sometimes when she gets her imaginations and take over her actions. So, and I think that was really very much based on how she was growing up. And then the publisher approached me to illustrate the series. At that time, we just thought we'll just release 4 books and see how it goes. It was actually my first job that I was given, from any publisher. And obviously I was like, yes, please, yeah, okay, I'm gonna do the job. And I was very excited. But when it came to designing the character, I was given a lot of freedom, which was great. I say freedom, but I had to spend about a month just drawing the character multiple times. I think I drew over 50 different versions of Billie B Brown characters, and that final one we were all happy with. And during that character design, I just put in a lot of my take on the character. I have not read the stories yet.
Yeah.
I was just told it's based on a feisty, active girl. Her name is Billie B Brown, and maybe she's aged somewhere between 7 and 8 years old. And that's all I was told. So I drew her with soccer ball, and I drew her with little scratches, thinking, you know, maybe she likes to try and climb trees. So a lot of things I drew during that character development. I think that also influenced the future stories that Sally came up with too. So I think it was a bit of a combination, because now the series has 30 titles actually. We have our next, like the 28th, 29th and the 30th book coming out later this year. So we weren't expecting it to be so popular. So we're very happy. But Sally very kindly says it's a joint effort, which is very nice.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So as for you, how did you get started with illustrating?
I always liked to illustrate. I think like everybody else, you know, you kind of get given crayons and paper, you know, kindy or at home, and that's where you kind of start. And in my case, I suppose I just never really stopped. And I had siblings. I'm one of 5 children. We all like to draw and we all like to tell stories. And I grew up in Japan. I was there till I was about 8 years old. And in Japan, there's lots of picture books too, but a lot of comics like Japanese manga and stuff, which we had at home, and we just loved copying whatever favorite characters that we liked. Then we'll draw our own stories. So that's like one of my favorite hobbies that I had. And then during high school, I chose, and we call it the Asian 5 subjects, like statistics, calculus, biology, physics, and calculus. You know, that typical maths and science. And then I got to choose one more subject, so I was like art. You know, I really liked art. I just didn't think of it as a profession or a path that I'll be following, but I just always kept it as my serious hobby. And at Form 5, that says how old I am. Form 5, what is that year? 11 now in this modern age. For my school C art, I got the highest mark in New Zealand in the country. So my teacher was like, you know, Aki, you should take this more seriously. And that's when Mum also told me you should take it quite seriously too. And I was like, but I don't want to be a poor artist. And I can just continue making art alongside being a physicist or something. So I focused on my science and math, thinking that's the right, you know, the right option, the more intelligent choice. But then Mum sent my portfolio to Elam School of Fine Arts.
Oh, wow.
And I got in to the interviews. Like out of the 1,000 submissions, they select like 200 students to interview. From there, they select from like 60 to 80 students to take the course. And I got in. So I was just like, okay. So I studied both Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Fine Arts for a couple of years. And I was very much torn. I liked both. And about the 3rd year into uni, I kind of had to choose. And by then I said, I will do fine arts. And I say fine arts, and it's very different to what I'm doing now, illustrating and doing picture book. It's very much contemporary, abstract art, you know.
Yes.
You see a banana on the wall and we say, that's art. It's very...
And Andy Warhol.
a bit crazy stuff. Mum and Dad were like scratching their head going, did we send you to do this? Like, they were thinking I'll turn into, you know, I don't know, Da Vinci, or like make amazing sculptures or make, you know, realistic painting. No, I was doing anything else but that. So after graduating, I didn't know. There was no job. They teach you how to be creative. They don't teach you how to get a job.
Yes.
So I put together a portfolio of a lot of the illustrations. I always loved to illustrate, so that's something I always did, even though I didn't do it at uni so much. But the last assignment at uni, I got to choose my own project. So I chose a graphic novel project. I was the only one who did that. And I drew my, 150-page graphic novel. And I think, I won some awards at
Okay.
the end of the year. So I was happy with that. Done with uni. I thought I won't go back. Then I sent my portfolio to a lot of publishers because I knew I didn't want to be a poor artist, but I was a bit confused as to what jobs were out there.
Yeah.
And sent them to publishers. I think I sent about 50 emails to just any publishers out there. Didn't hear back from most of them. Got a nice reply saying thank you, but no thank you from a handful. And maybe, 4 or 5 they said, oh, well, we'll keep you on file. But yeah, no thank you at the moment. So I just went back to uni. So I'll just continue studying because I can't decide what to do. So I'll just continue being a student, and I felt like I was doing something. And then about 2 years later, while I was still doing my thesis, 2 publishers got back to me. I was like, oh, they haven't forgotten about me. And one was Billie B Brown series, so they asked me to do that series. And one was Scholastic New Zealand, and they asked me to do my very first picture book. Wow. And since then, I just kind of went full-time illustrating children's books, along with other gigs, sometimes teaching and stuff like that to supplement. But I just never stopped illustrating for children's books.
Well, that answers a few of my other questions.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask about art school, but yeah, you did that.
Yeah, I did that.
As for, you mentioned that you really liked manga when you were a kid.
Yes.
What is an illustrated book that really inspired you as a burgeoning artist?
I mean, when I was a child, Mum, she loves books, both Japanese books and also international. Like, she was a big hoarder of children's books and adults' books. So we always had a huge library at home with lots of books. I was very blessed just to have, so much inspiration right there. And I think one of my favorite books that comes to my mind now is Raymond Briggs' Santa Claus. What else did he do? I'm trying to think of the actual title. They come to me in Japanese, but they are translated from English. But there's like Father Christmas. I'm sure that's what it is. But they are like graphic novels. You know? But written and illustrated by Raymond Briggs. And what other books? Trying to think. A lot of the classics. Where the Wild Things Are, The Night Kitchen, and a lot of Japanese picture books too. There's a series called 14 Forest Mice, I suppose that's what you would call it. It's a Japanese one, and I just really love that. Every page is a full page of just these 14 mice doing their stuff, and it was just
cool.
Just them like making houses and the big tree and like making dinner, and I just loved watching them like do their everyday stuff, but in the magical forest was doing their little washing and making their bread, and I just loved that series. I'm just surprised it's not really gone international. I haven't seen it in New Zealand. I know they're sold in Europe, but not in New Zealand, and that's a very I think any Japanese person would know that series.
Wow, all right. I want to ask you about another inspiration, more artistic. I looked at your website.
Yes.
And some of these really reminded me of maybe someone especially that's a self-portrait here. Is that
correct? It's not a self-portrait, but it's
okay.
Thank you, but just a female character I drew. Kiekaha, yes.
But it reminded me of Muka, Alphonse Muka.
It's funny you say that because I think I was inspired by a lot of manga artists that were inspired by Muka's art. Like Sailor Moon, people might not notice, but sorry, that's my daughter. She's just joining us on the interview. So Sailor Moon manga artist was very much inspired by Muka's work, and there were a few other manga artists that wrote manga specifically for girls that were inspired by a lot of Renaissance art. And naturally, because they bring a lot of decorativeness, very different to boys' comics that are naturally brought into the Western side quite easily because they already know the market's already there. A lot of the American or Western comic are already targeted to young boys or men in general. The superhero, market's already defined in the Western market. So I think that's why Dragon Ball was quite smooth sailing to cross over to the Western side. Anything that's based more fantasy like Pokemon, that's easy to transfer over. With the guild stuff, I think they weren't sure maybe because that audience hasn't been defined yet. They're not sure if it'll sell. So I'm a bit sad I haven't seen many guild manga being transferred over to Western side, but Sailor Moon has been, and and I loved Sailor Moon growing up, but many other mangas. There are just hundreds and hundreds that I can just think. I can't think of the titles off my head, but there's just so many. Yeah, when it comes to graphic novel or manga, Japanese comic, it's just they're in abundance and very accessible, very affordable. Yeah. And adults, kids, both genre. It's very much open. The culture there is very open to that medium.
Okay, that's fascinating. I had heard somewhere, it might have been a museum exhibition that said that Muka had inspired over time some manga comics. And
I think it's the line.
I'd ask an artist.
Yeah, the line quality is a lot of Japanese manga black and white, mainly to make it easy to print and sell. But I think the decorative line and quite the linear application of the line treatment was quite easy to transfer to the manga style. But I'm even just feeling honored that you even think my art can resemble anything of Mika's work. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yes. Well, before we end, have you thought of a graphic novel recommendation?
Recommendation? Gosh, I wish I can think of a good one. You actually have amazing collection in this library. Currently, I like because I'm actually working on a graphic novel project now. It's a bit of a secret. I can't say much, but it'll be coming out next year.
Oh, excellent.
So we're starting with a publisher, so it'll come out next year, late next year, I think. So I just finished off roughing out 150 pages of the first book, and I'm brainstorming the second book now. And for that, I had to actually really research what's out there in this modern landscape. And your library, like my community library, the Whangarei Central Library, was the first place I came. And my boys love One Piece series.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of Lei, I can't remember her, the ghost Australian author illustrator, and there's a graphic novel called Ghost, and it's in your library too, and I really like that. Yes, it's middle grade, but it's, I think there's something I think she also said somewhere in her blog, she also inspired by Japanese manga too, but it's quite cinematic, and it's very much visual storytelling, and I really enjoy reading her graphic novel. She's done another one called Picasso, and I think she's done other graphic novels too, so I would recommend her books. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
You're back on the shelf with me, Glenn, and LJ, Whangarei District Libraries Radio, and that was Andy talking to Aki.
Yeah, thank you, Andy, for doing that.
Very cool.
And the author that Aki was thinking of at the end there with the recommendations, I believe, was Remy Lai, and we do have a few of her books in the junior section, including Ghost Book and Picasso, which Aki mentioned, and also we've got Raymond Briggs in the catalogue that Aki mentioned as well. And then if you want to see more of Aki's work, of course there's the Billie B Brown series, but she also illustrates the Sam Kerr series, Lily the Littlest Angel series, and I think she's also illustrated some of the Go Girl series as well. But if you just search Aki Fukuoka in the catalogue, you'll be able to see what we have, and you can check out her website at www.akiart.co.nz. So that's akiart.co.nz.